On this show, I discuss metaphysical tools. And welcome back, everybody, to my show. I'm Reverend Dr. Michael Leike. We have a very special show today where I discuss metaphysical tools, including mystical meditation. But first, let's enjoy right here, right now. We become aware of this endless field of love energy in which we reside. We are one and the same with it, individualized expressions of the one, which we are extensions of. As we breathe, so does love breathe. As we live, so does love live. As we laugh, create, contribute, multiply, so too does love laugh, create, contribute, and multiply. Because love is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, and is always expanding, so too are we expanding. For love needs us to expand and to create, to express, and to be all that it can be. We affirm and we declare right here and right now in this energy of love that we are already all that is great. We all are already all that is eternal and good, because that is what we are allowing to be born through us as us. We are already perfection, continually blossoming through us as us, and it feels good. It feels great. As above, so below. We give thanks for this word, knowing that it is law and is already so in the mind of the universe. We release the word in gratitude and appreciation, letting it be so now and unto forevermore. And so it is, and so it is. Amen, amen, amen. Now in its 10th season, listen and watch Fridays to Dr. Michael's podcast and webcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio, YouTube, and Facebook. And we're back, everybody, with a very, very special show. We're going to be talking metaphysics this show. And if we happen to get any call-ins, that would be wonderful. I can answer your questions, be they metaphysically related or psychic related, etc. And I'd like to start with one of my books. And it's one of my favorites. It's a thick one called Spiritual Mind Science. And this book, it's really complete. I wrote the original version back in 2011 called The Science of the Soul, and have since expanded, and until about 2 years ago I had enough information to add to it, almost double the amount of information. How can this change your life, you ask? Well, there's some simple tools, there's some complex tools, but the basic idea why we go through this life, this physical illusionary life, as it were, is to be happy, is to create, is to allow higher mind, that higher self of ours, God is another word for it, to seep through as creativity, as creation, as love, as all that good stuff. In other words, to contribute to society on one level or another. And it's a very, very exciting journey if you have the spiritual tools. Now, I'll never ignore the physical, the mental, emotional, along with the spiritual tools. I've studied this for many, many years. I've also had a practice for about 25 years where I've seen tens of thousands of clients, actually more than that. And they all just want to be happy. They all just want to eliminate fear or apprehension and most of them are really good people who have gone through a hard time, be it financially for whatever reason, or a hard time emotionally, be it a trauma or change. And that book, Spiritual Mind Science, deals a lot with trauma. Let's say, and trauma isn't necessarily what you think it is. Traumas can be as a result of positive or negative changes. So in other words, there can be a rape, there can be a beating, there can be a theft, there can be a marriage, there can be a funeral, there can be a birth or a death. Any changes, if you will, we must allow for flexibility, and all of these tools opens up a channel for the highest realm to come through to allow for flexibility. Since we are mind, body, spirit, or psychophysical units, we can't have a single thought, either consciously or not, that doesn't affect our body. So we may have an ache or pain here and there. That's just natural progression, natural age, etc. But sometimes we have an ache or a pain or an ailment within our body, be it physical or emotional, that is linked to the mind, to problems in the mind. And in Eastern psychology versus Western psychology, I'm all about Eastern psychology, which is spiritual mind science or theocentric psychology. We deem the very center and nucleus of the mind as being not the libido as in Western psychology, but highest mind, higher intelligence, God, if you will. And if you tap into that power that we all have within us, the easiest way is at the very center nucleus of our mind. Also our heart or soul chakra. There's various ways to access source, if you will. But the easiest way is through meditation, sitting in silent contemplation, focusing in upon the brow or third eye area, and following your breath, following the in and out. And that alone will create what I call a mind shaft, a connection, a direct connection between the higher unconscious mind and the conscious mind. And in that little journey up from the very center nucleus of our mind, where God resides, supposedly, or perfect mind, all along the way, all along it, almost like an elevator rising up through the various levels of our mind, they begin to get tidied up and cleaned up naturally and healed. And then we begin to have less and less worries, less and less apprehensions, and hindrances seem less. So let's say we started off our life, our early life, if you will, with the goal of becoming an athlete or a performance artist, such as a magician or musician or whatever, or dancer. And we have a natural affinity for it, say. Well, as we grow a little bit older, sometimes society or our parents or our environment and friends tends to kind of put a strain on us, tends to discourage us. Of course, I'm not going to ignore those that support us as well. They're very, very important. The exterior support is just as important, but not as important as the interior support. And so, let's say you don't have that exterior support. If you've been meditating, if you're in touch with that higher self, higher intelligence, God mind, if you will, perfect mind, then nothing's going to get in the way. It's a buffer, if you will, and we'll be driven to take action without thought of failure. We won't see ourselves as losers, which is a very extreme term, but we'll see ourselves more as winners, just accomplishing. And it's almost like it just keeps flowing. One thing leads to another. We're led intuitively, because when we open that mind shaft from the very perfect mind up through our conscious level of our mind, and everything is cleaned up, well, you bet, intuition or God guidance leads the way. And we know on some level or another, okay, let's go here, or let's do this, or we feel good and we're suddenly inspired to take this direction. Just do it. So that's one of the benefits of meditation. When I speak of meditation, I speak of Eastern meditation. It's more than 10,000 years old, maybe more than that. Mystical meditation, another name for that is contact meditation. Another name for that is higher consciousness meditation. And it's for the express purpose of making divine contact. in other faiths and belief systems, you can say, well, we want to cozy on up to God. We want to develop a relationship with God. And this is running parallel to that concept and idea that when you sit and you still your mind, there's no barriers between your conscious mind and your higher mind. And so you connect and you develop a relationship. So with mystical meditation, it's the greatest tool in the world. It's been already proven that any form of meditation, clinically proven that is, will at the very least lower your blood pressure. At the very least, it will relax you. At the very least, it will ground you. And I know it's a very, very interesting time of all different kinds of belief systems and tools out there. And they're all shiny and they seem new, and most of them are not new. Most of them have been channeled or gone through various sources, if you will, and sound like something new. But I guarantee you, if you do your homework and you trace them all back, they have roots that are more than 10, 100,000 years old, if not more. There's nothing new. It's always the wheel being reinvented. And so with meditation, a very simple tool, you have to discipline yourself. You have to sit down. And in my latest book, I kind of encourage 3 times a day, 20 minutes each time. And that's a lot. It's well worth it. You won't not accomplish things if you say sit down for 10 minutes of quiet contemplation or meditation, or do that twice a day, so it results in 20 minutes in the 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. I guarantee you over time, you'll see results. You'll stop biting your fingernails. You'll stop being agitated. Your driving habits will be more calm. Over years, people will notice that. And I recall years after, I guess, high school or college, I ran into friends after 20 years of meditating, and they almost didn't recognize me. In that, apparently, I was more calm. I was a more patient driver. I attribute that to meditation. I don't attribute that to the many speeding tickets and accidents I'd been in previously that kind of taught me, don't speed, slow down, enjoy the trip, enjoy the journey. I attribute it to years and years of meditation, calming my mind. But it's a lot more than that. With meditation, or mystical meditation, if you will, there's a calmness, there's a serenity, there's a peace that passeth all understanding. But it's really more than that, because you're actually contacting God. How do we know when we've contacted God, or if we're in the presence of our higher mind or God? A peace overtakes us, a calm overtakes us, an optimism, a joy, a contentment. If you feel any or all of that for moments at a time or periods at a time, you're one with God. You're one with your source, one with your maker, if you will. And it's a very, very exciting experience, even though you feel calm, because you know you're well on your way. So, in Eastern versus Western psychology, which is actually the title of one of my other books, Western Psychology versus Eastern Psychology, we acknowledge various levels of the mind. In Western psychology, there is merely the libido at the very center of one's mind, if you follow Western psychology. And the libido is the instinct for survival. It's also sex drive, if you will. The next level up is the personal subconscious or subconscious mind, where we store traumas, memories, all kinds of things. Some people call it the memory bank. And then finally, we have the conscious level of our mind. As a clinical hypnotherapist, I explore all those levels. I take you in altered state to these various levels of your mind to clean them up, to heal them, but you're really healing them yourself. I'm merely a guide. That's a topic for another show. So, Eastern psychology acknowledges way more levels of the mind that need to be cleaned up. Some people refer to it as the trash bin of our minds. In future shows, I'm going to have other clinical hypnotherapists guests, and we'll discuss this further. But suffice it to say, at the very center nucleus of your mind, if you follow Eastern psychology, or theocentric psychology, or spiritual mind science, if you will, is God, is perfect mind, that spark. It's also the very center nucleus of every single one of the trillions of our cells, our tissues, our organs. If you've taken a microscope, an electronic microscope, as scientists have proven in the lab, they see that there's this spark, there's something in the middle of everything. And there's no refuting that. That's absolute truth. Even the air, solid objects outside of ourselves are still comprised of God, the God particle. You may have heard that term. Google it if you haven't. And so that means there's no place that God is not. On the outside, on the inside, it's almost like we're a fish in a fishbowl, and the water is God. And the water is inside and outside of us, if you like that analogy. We're also an extension of God, if you like to think that we're a mere drop from the ocean. We live in the ocean, and we're one of the droplets of waters that comprises the ocean. That's another neat comparison as well. Regardless, I believe it was Einstein who likened the power of God to a nuclear bomb, to nuclear fusion. He said it was that powerful. Back then in the 20s and 30s, that was the greatest explanation or analogy or comparison he had. But that's true. Now, this power can be used for good or bad, but it's God, it's source, it's higher intelligence, therefore we are automatically dealing with a good power, positive power. Anything that works with or deals with or starts to contemplate negativity, we're working with another part of our mind called the personal ego will, or personal ego identity. Personal ego identity is the opposite of perfect mind. It's the flawed mind. It's the part of our unconscious mind, and I'm still going to refer to the various levels, that hasn't been cleaned up yet. So our personal ego will, or personal ego identity, makes us think we want things or people or objects that may not necessarily be in our greatest interest. So perhaps we've decided, because we have the money, or worse, that we don't, that we want a fancier, expensive car, or we want clothing, or we want this partner, or we want this job or situation. There's nothing wrong with having ambition. I know a lot of Buddhist script says, don't be ambitious. That's not quite the meaning of it. They mean stay calm and allow yourself to be guided by higher power to know what you really want, or what's in your greatest interest, as deemed by God. So, in this lifetime, we have soul's purpose. We have multiple soul's purposes, which is God's will for us in this lifetime. And we can only access that through years of ongoing regular meditation, which clears out the various unconscious levels of our mind. So we're not hindered anymore. We're almost channeling Source. Source comes up and intuitively or literally says to us, consciously or otherwise, this is really what's in your greatest interest and in the greatest interest of others. And it could be many, many things. It usually is, as we physically grow, and then we mentally and emotionally grow, and then we start to age and we grow some more, then God responds to that. God guides us based on where we are in our life, emotionally and spiritually. And so, very central nucleus of our mind is the God mind, perfect mind, if you will. Up from that, and if you sit and meditate, you can start to clear these up yourself. Put yourself into altered state. Self-hypnotize yourself. That's also the topic for another show and many of my books. And then you begin to access, you begin to visualize going up the stairs of your mind. First going down the stairs of your mind to put yourself into altered state, and then stepping up. So, because it's easier for me to tackle it this way, I will. At the very center and nucleus of our mind, God, perfection. Meditation allows God to seep up and start to heal the various levels. The next level up from source, if you will, or perfection or perfect mind, is your soul level of your mind. And that's really close to God. It's really, it's almost perfection. And in there resides mostly positive, good, higher resonating experiences, feelings, memories, etc. And it's one of my favorite levels besides the center of our mind. Another level up is the collective unconscious. And the great psychologist Carl Jung referred to the collective unconscious, the collective unconsciousness. In essence, we're born into this lifetime with a lot of symbols swimming around in our unconscious mind. This is the level of our mind where there's symbols already embedded because of DNA, because of hundreds of thousands of years of breeding and conditioning, if you will. And so automatically, unconsciously on that level, crosses represent one thing or another. Angels represent another. Stars represent another thing. For example, if our mother beat us, then we may, on that level of our mind, see a demon, and that demon is really our mother, for example. And if we breathe God into that and meditate and do our scientific or affirmative prayer treatments, if we have time, we'll tackle that in this session. It begins to transform and transmute from negativity into God's perfect light, love frequency. And the next level up from the collective unconscious, if you will, one of my favorites, it's not what you think though, the psychic energy level. And psychic energy level only refers to non-physical. It refers to that which we visualize or envision or image. And that's another technique that we may or may not tackle for time restraints today. It's very, very exciting level because whatever we visualize or envision during the meditation process, because meditation gives all kinds of visualization power, and it also empowers affirmations. So there's no sense doing affirmations or visualization unless you're in an altered state. Very little will occur. It won't manifest or materialize into anything. But when you're meditating and you happen to visualize, you're visualizing from the psychic energy level. And it's at that point that you can connect to source, that whatever your visualizations are at that level of your mind comes into contact with source, and it begins to materialize. It's just an amazing process. That's why often inspiration is likened to that. An artist, especially, or a dancer, may have a vision, and that's where it originates, and then they do it, or they paint, or it comes into being through the channel or that person, that particular channel. Because after all, we are individualized expressions of the divine, of source. And that's one of the only reasons why we're here, to do our soul's purpose or God's will for us in this lifetime, and to create and to contribute. So one of the final levels of our mind, moving up from there, is the personal subconscious. Personal subconscious is the memory bank, and that certainly needs to be cleared up. Both Eastern and Western psychology agrees that if we've been traumatized, if we've had good or negative experiences, they're there. They reside there, and they must be cleaned up. Meditation will do that. Positive affirmations during meditation or scientific prayer, that's a whole other topic, which we will get to in future shows, future presentations. And it's very, very exciting because there is hope. So then finally, if and when you've cleaned up these various levels of your mind over time, through just meditation alone will do it, then you can accomplish, you can give, you can become a channel. Ultimately, a channel of God for the highest being. So, there is hope. Always. We'll be back. Source is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. Source is everywhere. There is no place Source is not. Therefore, where we are, Source is. Source is peace, love, joy, harmony, creativity, higher intelligence, wisdom. And just as the sunbeam is an extension of the sun, so too are we. Just as the waves upon the ocean are individualized extensions and expressions of the whole ocean, so too are we perfect, whole individualizations of Mother, Father, God.
We already are perfect in the mind of the universe, as the mind of the universe is perfect within us. Right here and right now, in this energy of pure perfection that we are one with, we affirm and we declare that whatever is put out is mirrored back to us, for we are one with the all. An exterior face of love and joy and of bliss reflects our feeling and extension and expression of love, joy, and bliss. We know not where the looking glass begins nor ends. We simply are. And we attract to us only creativity, only peace, love, and joy, for that is what we radiate out now and unto forevermore. These words are the law of the universe and already are in the mind of God. We release this word, letting us be in love, joyous, in the creative process now and unto forevermore, letting it be so, and so it is, and so it is. Expand your consciousness and awareness with Dr. Michael's more than 40 paperback books of a self-help, mystical, new thought, and metaphysical nature, available from Amazon.
And we're back. So, I want to thank you all for taking the time to tune into today's show. It's only a primer on spiritual tools. I like to call them spiritual tools and technologies. I hope you will join us for future shows. We're always here, either with guests or I go solo sometimes too, when guests don't show up. Nonetheless, I'm so eternally grateful for your presence. Until next time, peace and richest blessings.